Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the American Mystic. Welcome to a brand new and beautiful day, wherever you happen to be. I hope that it's a gorgeous day, night, afternoon, morning, wherever it happens to be, and whatever time it happens to be. It's the perfect time. It's the perfect time in your life to walk with your ancestors, to recognize your ancestors, to call upon your ancestors. That's the subject of our show today on the American Mystic. It's the subject of ancestors. It's kind of an interesting subject, particularly here in the West, in the United States, where we've become a little bit obsessed with finding out who our ancestors were, who they are, where they came from, because this really is a nation of immigrants for the most part. There are those of our relatives that have been here on Turtle Island since the beginning, and there are those who immigrated here to this land hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and some just yesterday or last week or last month or maybe a year ago. But it's a nation of immigrants. And for a long time, we didn't have the ability, other than what we experienced with our relatives talking to us about where our family members came from. We really didn't have the ability to go back a long way to understand where they came from, who they were, what their experiences may have been. And frankly, a lot of our relatives who came here to the Americas, to what would become the United States, a lot of them changed their identity when they got here. They became somebody different for a lot of different reasons. Maybe they were escaping something and needed to hide themselves. Maybe what they were leaving was shame or poverty or really wanting to have a new start, and that included changing their name, their nationality, their ancestry, their culture. So for a lot of people, digging into ancestry is a calling of the soul that really leads them on a twisty, turny, winding path of self-discovery, perhaps discovering what they've always been told isn't quite the way that it actually was. And for some people, that's disappointing, and for other people, that's exciting. And for some people, it just confirms what they've always known about who they are, who it is that lives in their blood and in their bones. And yet at the end of the day, here in the United States, at the end of the day, we're all Americans. We're all Americans. It doesn't matter the skin color, the skin tone. None of that matters. Origin stories, ancestral stories, at the end of our day, those that we carry in our blood, in our bones, in our DNA, and in our soul, who walk with us every day. At the end of the day, we're all Americans. So it leaves us in a bit of an interesting place, an exciting place. Good morning, Peggy. Good morning, Angie. Gee, I got started talking so quickly about this subject that I forgot to mention that the chat room is open here on Spreaker, so go ahead and join in the conversation if you desire. Those of you in the chat room, if you could hit that little heart button to show that you like the show, and maybe become a follower of the show, follower of the Temple Within podcasts, that would be outstanding. Recently, I changed the name to the American Mystic. And I did that with a lot of thought and a lot of purpose, with intention, conscious awareness, the American Mystic. Sometimes when we talk about our ancestors or ancestry, at least here in the States, we sometimes can feel that the real mysticism, the real magic, lies across the pond, as we call it. It lies everywhere but with us, here on this continent. And that simply isn't true, but we haven't really talked about it because the understanding of who our ancestors really and truly were and are is kind of something new here in the West. And again, other than the stories told around the Thanksgiving dinner table or deathbed confessions of family members, those kind of things, we haven't been able to understand the fullness, the breadth of who we are. I am one of those people who happens to be an adopted person. And so my soul has always had an understanding of who my people are. And by people, I use the capital P. Who it is that lives in my blood, in my bones. Who it is that has given me the way that I look, the way that I sometimes feel about things. I believe that generational patterns and traumas and joys and passions and gifts and talents, I believe that those are real. And I also believe that sometimes we are born to maybe change patterns with the help of the ancestors. I believe there's a purpose to understanding our ancestry more than just knowing who it is that we come from. And because, relatively speaking, the United States of America is somewhat new, and I'm not talking, of course, about our indigenous relatives, the First Nations people who lived here, over 500 tribes of people, well over 500 tribes of people that already existed, lived, and were having their way, community, etc., all those things that happen on a continent, long before many of our relatives came to these shores. Some of our relatives, some of my relatives were already here in what we call the southern states. My Cherokee relatives, the Creek relatives were already here, living life. And lo and behold, came my ancestors, the Celts, I call them, because they come from places like Scotland and Ireland and England and Northern Europe. And my ancestors came here on ships from the Congo. From South and West Africa and Madagascar. In the 17 and 1800s, they arrived. And all of them, those that were here, those that arrived on slave ships, those that arrived on passenger ships, they all have stories. They all have gifts. They all have talents. They all have meaning. I love them all. Those that were here have always been here. Those that arrived in the 1600s, those that arrived in the 1800s, 1700s, and those that arrived like my biological parents who arrived here in the 1900s from the Netherlands. I love them all. I am grateful for them all. I honor them all every day. And why do I do that? That's kind of the onus of today's show. When I look at my own grandson, when I look at his face and I see some of his behaviors, some of his mannerisms, I should say, they are so incredibly unique. And I know immediately where they came from. He points at everything with his middle finger, not his index finger, but with both hands, he points at everything with his middle finger. And the only other person I have ever known to do that very same thing is his mother. When she was little, from picking her nose to poking the cat, to pointing out something that she loved, that she wanted, she desired, she did so with her middle fingers. And I'm watching my grandson and chuckling about the fact that he does the same thing, that and so many other things. And it's a reminder that not only are we made up of blood and bones, but we're made up of memories. We're made up of memories that exist, I believe, in a spiritual field. The field of the soul. Our soul and the souls of those of our loved ones who have gone before us. I believe that somewhere in our soul memory, some of their memories exist. And at certain times and in certain places, we experience those memories. And I believe they experience those memories with us. In 2006, I took my very first trip to Egypt. And I remember stepping off the bus in Cairo. I stepped off the bus and I was immediately welcomed by the warmth of the air, the sun, and a waft of jasmine. Jasmine was everywhere when I got off that bus. And the smell of the jasmine combined with the sunshine and the warmth of the air stirred something within me, and I said right out loud, I've been here before. This feels so familiar to me. And I knew it in my bones. I knew it to the depth of my soul. I knew it in the blood that was coursing through my veins that I had been in Cairo, or at the very least there in Egypt before. I didn't have solid proof, right? I didn't have my 23andMe, my Ancestry.com report. I knew nothing about any of those things at that point, but my soul knew. And it would later, be proven scientifically that my relatives also lived in Egypt. They were Egyptian. And they now live within my blood and my bones and my soul memories here in Michigan, in the United States. And for those of you that are wondering, where is Michigan? Michigan looks like the mitten. We call it the mitten state because it looks like a mitten and it is surrounded by the Great Lakes. It is an absolutely breathtaking place to live and to be. I was not born here. My adoptive parents were born here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, right up there, tucked up next to Canada. Our beautiful friends in Canada. So the state that I live in is Michigan. But I am not a Michigander. I'm a Georgian. What does that mean? I was born in the state of Georgia and lived there for some time. My daddy's family were Georgians for hundreds and hundreds of years. And whether you're a Michigander or you're a Georgian, you're an American. And whether you're a Michigander or a Georgian, you're an American, and we come in many different colors and sizes and shapes and belief systems, ancestries, but our nationality is American. Our statehood can be, one of 50 states, and then we also have those parts of the United States, like the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico and Guam, but we're all American. Our roots are varied. I believe that our roots are important, and maybe I'm a little more interested in roots and things like that as an adopted person. Hey, Tara. It's good to have Tara and Angie and Peggy in the chat room this morning. But every morning here in Michigan, this here Georgia peach, That's what my dad used to call me, the Sarge. He would call me his Georgia peach. The state of Georgia is known for many things, and one of those things is their delicious peaches. Right? But that's what the Sarge called me, his Georgia peach. So we have many names, many things going on in our lives. And it's our ancestors who brought us here to this point, their struggles, their joys, their passions, their gifts, their talents. And so every morning, here in the Enchanted Forest, in the state of Michigan, I light a candle. I have an altar, I have a sacred space that's dedicated to the gratitude that I have for my ancestors. Because there are times when I call on my ancestors for help. And maybe you do too. Maybe there are times when you say, Mom, I need a recipe for, where'd you hide that recipe, Mom? Or Dad, could you help me out here? Or Grandpa, I need your help. You ever do that? I do that. And for those of you that are listening and you're wondering, well, can we also include our adoptive family in our ancestry? Absolutely, because I do believe, and this is just me being me, I believe that there are soul agreements that happen when you are an adopted person. I don't exactly know the circumstances around why my biological mother gave me up for adoption, or whether or not she even did that, whether I was stolen or taken. I don't know that. There's nothing but roadblocks to finding that out for me. I don't know why, but I do believe that there are agreements, if you will, between souls that say this child has been given up for adoption and we are going to pick up the mantle of raising her. I believe that those are soul agreements. And maybe they're made prior to birth, maybe they're made upon birth. I'm not certain that it's always the same for everybody. So yes, I believe that we also include our adoptive, if we choose, ancestors when we're requesting things. When Todd and I traveled to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which is where my adoptive parents were born and raised, and their parents and their parents and their parents arrived to the Upper Peninsula from Quebec, Canada, and before that from Scandinavia and Northern Europe. They were also Celts, many of them. Some of them were indigenous to that part of what we now call Canada. I asked for help about finding the best, place to get whitefish in the UP. Okay, Grandma, help Todd and I find the best place for whitefish while we're traveling along US 2. I do that. And sometimes when I'm working, and what I mean by working, whether I'm working with clients or preparing for a class that I'm teaching, or in my own workings, in my own prayer altars, in my own searching for knowledge, wisdom, I ask my ancestors to assist me. Help me to find the proper teacher to help me learn about root work, working with the roots, working with the plants, how to plant, when to plant. I call upon my ancestors. I ask you to help me, to guide me. Give me the signs. Have that teacher fall right into my space of being, to walk in, to be presented to me. The right book. When I'm planting my garden, be there with me. When I'm harvesting from my garden, I ask my ancestors to be with me, those that were gardeners, those that worked with the roots, those that worked with the herbs and the flowers and the tinctures. I ask you to be with me, and thank you. Thank you. Every day. Thank you for helping me get through this situation in my life. Thank you for helping my children get through the situation they're going through in their lives. Thank you. So we don't have to do it all on our own. Our ancestors, I believe, and in the way that I've been taught by the elders in my family, my adoptive family, those that are living out in South Dakota and Colorado, my Hunka relatives. Those are my relatives. Sometimes they need assistance, but one of the things that they've all taught me, actually all of my relatives that I've known have taught me, is that we don't have to do everything on our own, and we don't always know why things happen. We don't. And sometimes we need some help in trusting the process, muddling our way through, getting through triumphantly, or just, right, ducking low until the storm passes. Those are the times also that I call on my ancestors. Usually I call on my illuminated ancestors in those times. What do I mean by illuminated? Those that are seated, have taken a seat, if you will, are back in the realm of the ancestors who have made their journey all the way back to the realm of the ancestors. I believe that when we pass from this physical body, we go through a process. We go through a process of peeling away the layers of our human experience. Because we experience, typically speaking, a lot of stuff while having a human life. Some pretty astonishingly beautiful things. Maybe some not so bright and shiny things, the mundane things, high highs and low lows and everything in between. And especially those times that are excruciating upon the human journey. Those are the times that I call upon my ancestors to assist me. I always have, even when I didn't know them by name, as far back as I can remember, to help me get through, not to avoid, not to cover up, not to shrink from, but to help me get through. Safe passage through. They all did it. And I call on my illuminated ancestors because they're the ones who have processed all of that after their physical life has ended. They've walked through all of that. Some of my relatives I know are still in the process of, I believe, working through, understanding, comprehending, learning from this human experience, which is pretty spectacular. And I believe that for some of our relatives, it's a process, and for some it's longer than others. Not that I don't ask for recipes or quick fix or any of that, but when I'm really going through the storms, I want to call on those ancestors that have done it and have completed the ancestral journey after the human journey. That's just me. That's just the way that I've been taught by my elders, some of them. Our ancestry, I believe, gives us proclivity toward liking certain things, not liking other things, shying away from some things and going full bore into other things. I believe they travel with us. I know they travel with me, just like that moment in Egypt. And also being in the pyramids, at the pyramids, felt very familiar to me. not in my conscious years here in this lifetime, but from a place deep within me. Smells also do that for me. Always, always, always. Driving down south. My husband, Steve, my former husband, he would always wait for me to smell the magnolia blossoms at a certain point in the drive going south. And I would say, oh, I can smell them. We're getting close. We're getting close to Georgia. We're getting close to our wherever. And he would laugh and say, yep, that sniffer of yours. It stirs a feeling. For some people, a campfire stirs an emotion. Maybe from a memory in this lifetime, maybe from a memory in another lifetime. Smells do that. The smell of frankincense and myrrh burning for me. The smell of sage, of cedar. They evoke memories. Some of them from this lifetime, some from other lifetimes. Music, I believe, does the same thing. Genres of music. Art, dance, drumming. Oftentimes people will say, do our relatives when they pass, do they join in family functions? Are they there? I believe that they are. It's been my experience that oftentimes those that we love that have passed on, that have crossed over, they're there. They are there at the weddings. They are there at their own funeral. They are there at the graduations, the birthing rooms. They join us. I love the practice that many people have, that when they are getting married, that if mom or dad or grandma and grandpa or a special person that they love has passed on, that they ask to have a photo of them present at the wedding, or maybe a chair set up with their photo on it. And I've had many a bride say to me, do you think that they actually come here and they participate? And I believe they do. And as someone who sees, I am a seer, oftentimes I see them there enjoying the festivities. Our ancestors are not dead. They're very much alive. And it doesn't matter if they lived 10 years ago or 1,000 years ago. Their consciousness still exists. And we have many names for those places that their consciousness still exists. Summerland, Nirvana, heaven, the Akasha. But they exist. Energy doesn't die, it just changes form. Their energy, their consciousness has changed form. They are alive. I believe in reincarnation. I believe that we are sometimes our own relatives who existed before. We've come back for another go-around. A lot of people have deja vu moments that I believe are caused by the fact that maybe an ancestor was there and the ancestor in the blood and bones is informing them, or maybe they were the ancestor or one of those ancestors that experienced it. Peggy is saying, smells give me comfort through memories and pleasure. I am with you. Absolutely, Peggy. Smells, smells, smells. There are some things that you know so deep in your soul, and sometimes people will tell you the direct opposite. one of the things that, I don't know, at least for me, growing up in a Catholic household was not traumatic. Did I like going to church and every holy day of obligation and having to wear those ashes on my forehead when I was a teenager? Did I like doing that? No, but we're teenagers, we're kids, right? We got better things to do. Was it traumatic for me? No. For some people, it is traumatic. And so I don't negate anybody's experience. My experience of being in the church was the love of the smell of the frankincense and myrrh, of listening to the priest chant part of the service in Latin. I don't even know if that's done anymore. I guess that's aging myself. But listening to the Latin being sung, the Latin language being chanted or spoken, and add to that some frankincense and myrrh. And I remember as a kid loving, the thicker the frankincense and myrrh, the better, especially like Christmas Eve, when a lot of the Mass back in the day was sung in Latin. There was something about that Latin language. There was something about literally being in a cloud of frankincense and myrrh and the candles, the dripping candles, and the prayers and the beautiful icons and the beautiful statues. I loved it. I still love it. Doesn't mean I have to be a fan of organized religion, but the experience of the ritual, of the ceremony, of the smell of the candles burning, and knowing that there was an alchemy happening inside the church and at the altar. I knew that even as a kid. I knew there was magic happening. Alchemy was happening. Spirit was in the room. And when I was finally old enough to light one of the candles in the Lady Chapel, for those of you that are wondering, what is she talking about? The Lady Chapel, usually the place where there are lots of rows of candles underneath the statue of Mary, Saint Mary or Saint Teresa or whoever the patron saint happened to be, female. When I first got to light my own candle, I remember that was a big deal. And I still, when I'm traveling abroad in Europe or other places, the Middle East, as we call it now, the African continent, and I go into a cathedral or, I'm the first one that makes a beeline to light a candle and send up a prayer. I believe that works, and I believe that when I do it, my ancestors, when I ask them, are right there with me, helping me with that prayer. Yeah, so as you can see, I get a little bit excited about the candles and the incense and the statues that represent the saints, that represent the angels. And it doesn't matter whether I'm in a cathedral here in Michigan or Georgia or Ireland, Egypt, France, Italy, Greece, Scotland, England, all the places that I travel to. There's an alchemy, and I can feel my ancestors with me. So it was interesting when my biological family reached out through Ancestry.com and said, hey, I believe that we're related. One of the things that confused some of my relatives on my mother's side of the family was me growing up Catholic and my love of the ritual and et cetera, et cetera. And because in their understanding, my mother was not raised Catholic. And a couple of years later, one of my cousins, my first cousin, said, well, yes, actually, our parents, including your mother, they were raised Catholic. My grandfather was from Belgium. my grandmother from Amsterdam. And so my mother was raised Catholic. And my grandfather's people in Belgium were Catholic. And their people in France were Catholic. And so I could then begin to really understand the depth of my love of ritual. Just as I'm here this morning and I'm talking to all of you, I have candles lit. Prayers of gratitude for the ancestors have already been said. And what does that sound like? Every morning when I light the candle, thank you to my ancestors. Thank you for imparting your gifts to me, your teachings to me, your understanding of the worlds of earth and heaven to me. Thank you for sharing those with me. Thank you for living in my blood and in my bones. Thank you for enduring so that you could help me endure. Thank you for your laughter, your sense of humor that perfumes my laughter and my sense of humor. Thank you for that. Thank you for your strength and your courage. Thank you for your gentleness and your love. Thank you. So every morning it can be a little bit different when I light that candle. Sometimes when I go to sleep at night, I invite them into my dream time, or they just come into my dream time. They teach me lots of things in my dreams, in my quiet times. But I give gratitude for them as I always have. And for me, the lighting of the candles and the ritual of that evokes something, memories within me. Peggy is saying, especially Christmas Mass. Yes. Especially Christmas Mass. One of my most favorite memories was going to a retreat center in Jackson, Michigan. It is actually a convent. It is a silent convent. And so no words are spoken. It's a retreat center where you go to get quiet. It's a Romanian Orthodox center. And I went years ago. And one of my favorite parts of my weekend of quiet was the food that the sisters made, which was amazing, food out of their own gardens, the quiet of the grounds, the quiet of the cemetery there, and Vespers, midnight mass. And the chapel was really very small, and the Orthodox nuns were dressed always 24/7, it seemed to me anyway. I wasn't there when they went to sleep. But they were in their black habits, the wool habits with the high headpiece. And they were wood carvers, they were gardeners. And every night at midnight, they sang. So I made sure that I took a nap during the day so that I could go to the little chapel for Vespers. And Mass was sung in Romanian. That tiny little chapel was so full of frankincense and myrrh and copal that I could hardly see anything. It was just me and my dear friend and the sisters. No one else was there for Vespers. The prayers were powerful. And at one point, understanding that I am an English-speaking American only, they sang Vespers in English for a little while, and I was moved to tears. One of my favorite memories from this human lifetime. In that small Romanian chapel, Romanian Orthodox chapel. Magic was in the air because the prayers were in the air, right? Prayers are magical. Hi hane washte chue. I was going to give you a call, and here you are. So that's my experience, but everybody's experience is different. And everybody's experience is valid. Everybody's experience makes us who we are, and I believe that the experiences of our ancestors, again, perfume us. Hey, Kelly. Power is out here in Spencer Woods. Yeah, we had a heck of a storm last night. Todd took Elise to get a tattoo at our favorite tattooist, Raven Wind, down in Otsego. It's Elise's nursing school graduation gift is 8 hours of tattooing with Raven Wind. So last night when they were coming home, we had an astonishing windstorm, thunder and lightning. And speaking of how our ancestors inform us, for me, when the wind kicks up, I go outside. On the lower level of the house, right next to the door, I have a pouch of tobacco. And I go outside right into the storm, and I talk to the trees. And I thank the trees for being flexible, for bending with the wind so that the little ones that live in their branches, the little squirrels and the birds, so that they can be safe. And so I thank the tree people for being flexible and for teaching me how to be flexible. And then I talk to the wind nation. For me, I refer to them as Tate Oyate, the wind nation. And I thank the wind spirits for blowing gently through these acres. Blowing gently so that the trees can bend with them. And I say thank you for the wind that you're bringing here and for the gentleness of it. And for any of the medicines that you're bringing here on your wind. Thank you. Thank you for your gentleness. And then I look at the lightning that's going off in the sky, and that's the Wakia Oyate for me, the thunder nation. And I thank those thunder beings, those lightning beings, for being here to help things grow, to charge the air, to make it good for all of us to breathe again. A lot of those the dust from the fires out west have been coming here through Michigan. And that lightning, that thunder helps to clear the air, to help things be purified again. So when I go out during a storm, sometimes it's me and Todd together. Todd was already singing in the car because the winds were so bad on the way home that he hit a street sign that had blown into the middle of the highway. Nobody was hurt. The Jeep wasn't hurt, but they hit that sign. So when I go out, I give gratitude for the gifts of. And I lay down that tobacco as a thank you, as a gift. Every time. Who taught me that? My relatives taught me that. And it works. The other night, my brother Guy was in my dreams, teaching me some things, showing me some things. Our ancestors are not dead, they're very much alive. They're alive within us, they're alive around us, in our consciousness, in our love. They're alive where their soul is existing, in the cosmic oceans and seas of life. They're here for us. They are there for us. Kelly is saying, I did the same thing, talking to our trees for fortress of protection. Yes. Yes. My sister, my Chue, Del Marie, is saying, 2 fires on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation. Evacuation happening for Lame Deer and Ashland. Prayers needed for rain. Prayers will be lifted for rain. One of the things that I learned a long time ago, when we pray for assistance, and we're praying especially for assistance from the spirits of the rain, to become the rain. What do I mean by that? There have been times here over the years in the Enchanted Forest where it's been really dry. And this is just me, the way that I was taught, and I don't even know who taught me all those years ago. Somebody taught me to become the rain. Somebody once said to me, the old ones became the rain when they prayed for the rain, when they danced for the rain, when they drummed for the rain, they became the rain. And so for me, I imagine myself as rain, as a droplet of water, connecting with many more droplets of water, connecting with the consciousness of water, the spirit of water. So I envision myself as a drop of water that becomes many drops of water. I think some of the practices of the old ones have been forgotten, but they're re-emerging. Our ancestors are helping us to remember what the industrial age has helped us to forget, to make fun of, to chastise others for, to punish others for. Our ancestors are helping us to remember what the industrial age said that it could replace, do better than. Our ancestors are helping us to remember. Prayers for the relatives in Montana, California, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, parts of Canada. We call to the ancestors, the illuminated ancestors of those who reside in those places, for the animals, the tree people, the grass people, the flower people, the stone people. We call to you and we thank you for the gift of rain, gentle rain. We thank you for the gift of gentle rain. It can be as easy as that. It can be something more. And the beauty of prayer is that it doesn't need to happen right in that spot. Right? It can happen anywhere. Prayer is a vibration, it's an energy. And when we add that request for assistance from the ancestors, holy smokes. Look out. Dell is saying, definitely true for most of society, forgetting the importance of living with the universal laws to take care of each other. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Haye. Yes. And we're coming back to that. For those of you that don't live here in the United States, some of the teachings about this time that we're living in, the time of the return of the white buffalo calf woman, the time of the return of the eighth fire, is talking about the return of the old wisdom to be utilized in this day. Not dialing back the clock and in that way, dressing, back like the old days or anything like that, but the old wisdom re-emerging for this day, this time that we're living in. And that's what's happening. That's why many of us are being called to dig up the ways of our ancestors. What did they practice in their indigenous ways? What did they practice in indigenous Norway, Netherlands, Scotland, Ireland, Poland, Romania, Mongolia? Those indigenous ways all around the world, they're coming back now at this time, as the old ones said that they would. The construct of man is falling away. The constructs. People are taking a different look at religion, peeling away the religion. I call it the rules of the country club. I'm kind of irreverent when it comes to organized religion. The rules of the country club, right? They're falling away. The good old boys club is hanging on by a thread. And what's rising are the teachings, the old teachings that were incorporated into the country club teachings. I guess that's a whole other show, isn't it? The rituals of our ancestors who did not belong to organized religion. My Celtic ancestors did not belong long time ago to organized religion. I see them dancing amongst the stones in Scotland, England, Cornwall, Wales. My ancestors from the African continent, from the Congo, Madagascar, Kenya, long, long time ago didn't belong to organized religion. Neither did my relatives from Egypt. Neither did my ancestors that we call Cherokee, we call Creek, we call Seminole. They didn't belong to it either. They had their ways of being with the land, with the earth, with the sky. before the constructs were created. Those constructs are taking a heavy-duty hit right now. And what remains are the rituals, the protocols, if you will, of ceremony, of connecting to spirit. I do know that all of my ancestors going way back have also had the ability, not all of them, of course, but a majority of them, I'm certain, had the ability to see spirit as I see spirit. Or at least a good number of them. I don't know about a majority, but a good number. To hear spirit, connect with spirit, interpret spirit. I take a lot of comfort in that. I take a lot of comfort in that. Kelly is saying, I finally found and purchased a book of Norse herbology and old ways written in old text. Can't wait to get my eyes on the written word. Yeah. And some of the teachings, Kelly, you and I talked about that the other night. Some of the teachings were never written. They were spoken generation to generation to generation. And some of it that was burned, a lot of it was burned, torched. A lot of that information that was burned, that was done away with, the people were done away with. The information is still in our DNA, still in our bones. It's hidden in the songs. It's hidden in the artwork. Hidden in the petroglyphs, the hieroglyphs. And those with eyes to see it. Those with souls that understand it. It's in those times, sometimes I run across a teaching that I might not comprehend in that given moment. And I will ask my ancestors that do understand to help me understand what's being taught to me. And I don't think we're ever too old to continue learning from our ancestors. I don't believe that that's true. You just keep on learning, Dana. You just keep on going. Yeah, I think it's exciting. I think it's exciting to learn because it's exciting to share and to teach. And anyway, back to this idea of being an American mystic. Some people are Native American mystics. I can't claim that because I'm not 100% Native American. In this country, it's important. Blood quantums are important here still for a variety of reasons. Other countries don't understand our use of blood quantum here in the United States. What it's been used for, why it exists, they don't understand it. So I would not ever claim to be a Native American mystic or a Celtic mystic or an African mystic. I'm all of those things. I'm an American mystic. I'm an American ceremonialist. An American seer. I live here. This is the country. My nationality is American. My ancestry is African. Or maybe I should say Congolese, Egyptian, Kenyan. And my ancestry is native, indigenous to this country. One of my relatives reached out through Ancestry.com. We share fourth generational grandparents, and when you have grandparents that were part of the slave rolls, relatives that were part of the slave rolls, oftentimes the names are missing. So what you have in common are the fact that those names are missing at that generation, and that the names subsequent to that match. So it'll be interesting to do some investigating into that. Yes, some of my relatives were on those slave rolls, but I don't just think of them as slaves. I mean, they were much more than that. Yes, that was a hardship that they endured, unspeakable at times. And maybe I also have native relatives that were slaves. You know, my native relatives were slaveholders and they were slaves. I mean, the history of this country is fascinating. My brother Guy and I had a great conversation about that before he passed, about what most people in the United States don't know about the history of the United States. Well, because it's not taught, and it takes effort to dig some stuff up, right? And it's not always what you want to read or learn about, right? Because it can twist your mind around. But anyway, I'm all of those things. I love it all. I love them all. And I love those that have taken me into their families in this lifetime. And whatever soul connection was made, I honor that. The ancestors love us. And I believe it's an active love. It's not a love that was because they were. It's an active love because they are. They are. We may have relics of theirs, but they're alive. My cousin Corey was so kind in giving me some of the pieces, or one of the pieces, that my great-grandfather brought with him to this country, that he tucked it away in his pocket. He loved it so dearly. I have that relic. I have grandfather's relic, his treasure. It was his treasure. But I know that he's very much alive. His consciousness, his experiences, his soul. I do have the benefit of being able to see them in spirit. So I'm telling you that even if you cannot see them in spirit as I do, they are there with you, and they will give you signs. Ask for a sign. Let me know it's you. Here's the sign that I would like to have. And thank you. Thank you. This whole human tapestry of our ancestors really is something. Yesterday I got a note that George Washington and John Adams are my cousins. I don't know how many times removed. Interesting, isn't it? Oh my. When it comes down to it, we really are all related. We really are all related. And our relatives, they come and they go. They choose to come back to this lifetime. I know I've been here before. It's not even a matter of do I think, kind of, sort of, maybe. I know that I've been on this earth before. And I know the places that I've walked before. And I believe that our ancestors walk with us in all places. We carry them in us. They inspire us. They help us to have the strength to break generational traumas, patterns. We don't do that on our own. I believe many of us at this time have come to the earth to break generational patterns that are not healthy. And you know who you are if you're one of those people. Oftentimes, we can be labeled the black sheep of the family. The one that people just don't get because we're not towing the party or the family line. We've come here to do something different. We've come here to break a pattern that is no longer healthy for the bloodline. No longer healthy for all of humanity. It's no longer healthy for any living thing on the earth plane. Many of us have come here to help break those patterns and do something different. And it ain't easy. And we don't have to do it alone. That's the great news. That's the great news. Some of us have come here to be the one that brings the gifts back. I know I'm that person in my family. I am the one that speaks about spirit. I am the one that is the ceremonialist. I am the one with the altars that I keep. In some cultures, I would probably be called a witch. That's fine. I've got lots of ancestors that were witches. One that was even killed because she was one, hung by her neck until she was dead here in the colonies for being who she was, who she came here to be, a healer. I know that I'm that person to reintroduce the magic, to reintroduce the mysticism, and to not only practice those ways every day, to walk that way every day, to be good with it, to be educated about it. I'm that person, the resurrector of magic and mysticism, so that my children and my grandchildren and anyone else that wants to learn anything that I may know is empowered to do the same for their bloodline, for the benefit of all living things. I think that's why we have gifts and talents, is for the benefit of all living things, if we choose. With that, everybody, thank you for joining me this morning. Thank you for shining your light the way that you shine your light, wherever you happen to shine it, here in America or abroad. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Until we meet again, blessings be. Get out there and shine.